Score, and today is my live for the Tuesday top tips. Should you pay that collection? The smart way to handle collections on your credit report. So that's today's topic. Please note if you do have any questions, please put those in the comments. I think this is going to be some content that you may indeed have some questions because this can get pretty complex. I know a lot of people come on and talk about collections and they simplify it, but I'm going to show you that it's not quite so simple. Okay. So mark this one as one to replay later. But welcome. This is Tuesday Top Tips. I will be live every Tuesday at 12 noon. And actually, next week, we're going to talk about credit through the eyes of a loan officer. So make sure you're here. You can always register to be on the Zoom with me so that you can ask any questions that you might have. So feel free to do that if you want to be live on the Zoom with me. Otherwise, you can always message in the comments and I'll get back to you and, of course, share or listen to this replay later. So welcome again. So have you ever wondered if paying a collection will actually help your credit score or hurt it? Oftentimes I hear people get on social media and they'll say, don't pay your collections, it's going to hurt your credit score. And that's not actually the truth or the whole truth. So we're going to kind of get down to the bottom of that. I have some notes in front of me because I want to make sure that I cover all the points with you as best as I can in the short amount of time that I'll be live. But if you want to deep dive into this, please let me know. I do have a class that you can get the recording of. It's called Disputes Done Right, which could help you. But if you want to get more deep dive into collections, we can certainly schedule a time to do that. So the first thing you always want to do if you have a collection reporting on your credit report is validate before you pay. So that's important. So you never want to pay something without validation. So you want to request a validation, chain of title, maybe the original contract, payment history, evidence the balance is correct. So if you have even like you think about an apartment complex, getting itemization of debt for collections, especially medical bills, because sometimes it's just the billing is wrong. So it's really important to gather the information for the evidence of the debt so you can request that. I like to request it from the creditor themselves rather than trying to dispute it with the credit bureau. So my first step would be to contact the creditor who's reporting it and ask for that information. Many collections cannot be validated, meaning they should not remain on your credit report. So again, that's the first step in the credit collections on your credit report. Now, here's where it gets a little complex. Let's say you have a collection reporting on your credit report, and if you look at the last updated date, it hasn't updated for over 2 years. By you requesting validation and by you maybe disputing it or inquiring about it, you could wake that debt up and then they start to report in this new age. So let's say they haven't reported in months and now they all of a sudden start reporting because you open that up again. So keep in mind by doing that, you could actually cause your score to drop because you opened it up. Okay, so looking at that last reported date is really important to determine what your next step might be. Okay. Never, 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 never hand money over without proof that they own it and that it's an enforceable debt. So this is especially true if maybe you're not just looking at your credit report, but you got a phone call from somebody and it's this harassing phone call that says something like, if you don't pay me today, we're going to have someone come and arrest you and blah, blah, blah. Really, really important. You never pay someone over the phone, first and foremost. You always get evidence. So that validation of debt is very, very important to get. And also remember that you want to look in your state, what is the statute of limitations for that debt? So obviously if the statute of limitations is passed by you affirming that it's your debt or by you making a payment, you will restart the statute of limitations. So you got to be careful. And some states have different rules. If the statute of limitations is already over and they're calling to collect and you pay them something, it could restart it even though it's already over. And then other states say, no, it's already over. There, you don't need to pay it. So you have to really be careful and know what your state laws are for collection of debts. So I think that's really important. So again, you have to be careful. When was it last reported before you touch it? And this is where a lot of credit repair companies get it wrong because we look at credit reports, we look at the negatives, we start disputing all the negatives. But sometimes disputing a negative can actually drop your client's credit score. Have you ever seen that you disputed a negative and it dropped the score, right? And that happens. I see it all the time because you disputed something that had been asleep for a period of time. So just like paying a collection that's been asleep could drop your credit score if it's not removed, disputing a collection that's asleep, and getting that updated could also cause that. So just be very, very careful. Again, another reason I do not dispute personally to the credit bureaus unless I'm setting up litigation is because the credit bureaus tend to open stuff up that's sleeping. Okay. So that's number one. So be very, very careful. Validation of debt is important. Okay. The other thing you might want to look at before you open up a sleeping one is, are there true errors on the credit report, right, that need to be addressed before you open it? Step number two, understand how collections impact your score. Some collections report monthly. So that's keeping that negative impact alive. It's like hit after hit after hit. So if I were to pay a collection that's updating every month, hit after hit after hit, I would actually improve my credit score. Okay. Because it's hitting me every month with this negative, right? So once I pay it, damages stop, the bleed stops, right? And so I can now start to let that get behind me and recover from it. However, if it's not updating every month, and let's say I seen one recently, a girl called me, she wanted me to dispute an auto collection that hadn't updated in 5 years. And I'm like, no, we're not going to dispute that, because me disputing it, even though there was errors on this, she was getting ready to buy a home. So I know her goals. That's the other thing, Ciara, is we got to know the consumer's goal. We got to know the time frame, because if we don't know the time frame, we can do damage that could be fixed in the long term, but they needed a short-term fix. So for this particular person, she wanted me to dispute an auto that had not updated its reporting for 5 years. So I knew I had a possibility of updating that and making this more alive, thus dropping her credit score. She wanted to buy a house. So I informed her, hey, I see the errors in the reporting. It shouldn't be on your credit report. You're exactly right. But it also hasn't updated for 5 years. So if I dispute it for the errors and they fix the errors and keep it on your report and update that negative debt on your report, I'm going to drop your score possibly 50 points. And you told me in the next month or two you want to buy a house. And the whole reason you're coming to me to dispute this was because you wanted to buy a house in the next month and you were hoping to get this off to jump your credit score, right? And so I could do the exact opposite of what her goal is. So I needed to inform my consumer about the choices and let her make the decision, right? And so that's where I'm telling you guys, you have to know what their goal is, you have to know what their time frame is, and you have to know what are the alternatives, what are the different things that I can do with this particular debt. Paying does not automatically delete unless there is a pay for delete policy. So, or you have made that arrangement with negotiations. So two things, there are lots and lots and lots, and Level Up Score can tell you which ones, but there are a lot of credit collection companies that actually do have an internal policy that if you were to settle and pay the debt, they would remove it from your credit report. So with Level Up Score, when we analyze that credit report, we tell you which ones those are, right? So you can advise your clients appropriately, especially if they are like this client who wants to buy a house in 30 days. And I have a collection here that's negatively impacting their credit. It's updating every single month. And I have a note that says from Level Score says, hey, this collection company has an internal policy that they will settle and remove. Then that game on, let's go, right? So I'm going to look at the hero in that particular situation. You can also negotiate for a pay for delete. Keep in mind, if you negotiate for a pay for delete before you pay that money, get something in writing. Okay. Payments on a collection are never a good idea. So unless you have a long time frame to recover. So what I mean by that is if I got, let's say I went to XYZ collection company and they said, your debt's $1,000, we'll settle it for 200. You pay, and I say, I don't have 200, I'll pay you 25 bucks a month for the next several months. And they say, yes, we can do that. That's probably not a good situation because by law, they have to update that reporting with a new balance. Thus, they're updating the reporting. Unless they're already updating the reporting every month, that could be a negative impact to my credit score. So again, looking at how are they reporting at the present time. Now, here's another twist. Modern FICO and Vantage score models actually ignore paid collections. So if a lender is using FICO 9, FICO 10, Vantage 3.0, Vantage 4.0, those models have already played inside of them that if you pay that collection, it actually removes that or ignores those from the calculation of the credit score. Okay. However, keep in mind, there are very few, if any, lenders out there that your consumers would be using that actually use those models at the present moment. So that being said, most of the models that are being used right now are either FICO 8 for personal loans, auto loans, credit cards, FICO 8 auto, that model, or the FICO 5, 4, and 2 model for the mortgage industry. So it's not common that we're going to see Vantage 3.0 or Vantage 4.0 or FICO 9 or FICO 10 being used. But if your consumer knows that they're going to XYZ lender who said they're going to use that, maybe you could advise paying collections to improve the credit, but making sure you inform them that on other models, that's not going to be the same truth, right? So that's important. Step number 3, I call it the 2-year rule. Okay. So we know that the biggest impact to your credit score is in the most recent 2-year history, right? And this is especially true if you're working with mortgage lenders because we're looking at that 2-year profile. But that 2-year history is really important. So a lot of times when I'm looking at a credit report and I'm looking at the updated reporting, I don't want to touch anything that hasn't updated in the most recent, that has not updated prior to the most recent 2 years. But if they've been reporting in the most recent 2 years, then it might be a good idea for me to now take care of that debt. Now I'm going to take that a step further and say 2-year rule is a good rule to apply to your business, but also looking at if this company is not updating monthly or very often, then I don't want to be touching that. I don't want to open up that sleeping debt. Okay. But if it's, unless I have a lot of time frame to work on it. So maybe my model is I do FCRA violations and litigation, whatever, and I have time to go through that process and then knowing that it will very likely be removed entirely. Again, you just have to know what the goal is and you have to know what the time frame is and you have to know what your client wants from you. That's the most important part. But just to go from the 2-year rule and why it's tricky. If a collection is older than 2 years and not updating, paying it can backfire. Payment makes it look new again, right? Updates that reporting. Some debts are old, but still actively update monthly. So just because a debt is 2 years old, if it's updating negative impact every month, then it's an active account. And this is hurting the score. So paying may stop the monthly updates and help actually improve the credit. Be careful disputing dormant debts. Disputing can wake up and reset the reporting date. So it's not just about making the payment. So I hear all these CROs and different people on social media say, don't pay a collection. Well, if you have the philosophy that they shouldn't pay the collection, you should also have the philosophy that they shouldn't dispute the collection. Okay. Unless you can assure that it's going to be removed because you could possibly wake it up and it not get removed. If there's an error on the reporting and they fix the error, it stays on. Right? And now, but you updated it and that could hurt the credit score. So be very careful about what you're actually doing in that dispute process, as well as in suggesting or not suggesting paying a collection. So some of the best strategies for working with collections is validate first, remove if invalid, negotiate for deletion, best outcome, unless they also have their own internal policy, pay if actively updating to stop the bleeding, dispute if actively updating to try to get it removed, right? Leave it alone if it's old and dormant, unless strategically necessary. Again, you know the goal and it's litigation or something like that. You have a long time to fix the damage, and could be created from waking up a dormant account. So to wrap up this message for today, and I hope this helps you guys, validate first, know the 2-year update rule. Deletion is gold standard. We all know that. Every client situation is different. Know your client's goal, know your client's time frame, and there's no one size fits all in this recommendation that I'm giving you guys today. One wrong move though can cost 20 to 50 points or maybe even more, just depends on the client's profile. One right move can actually open their door to home ownership or whatever their credit goal might be. So again, I hope this helps. Please meet me next Tuesday at 12 noon. I will be live. And of course, if you want to get on the Zoom recording, you can jump on with me and be able to interact with me during the live. But that will be on credit through a loan officer's eyes. So I think you'll like that one because most of you, I know, work with lenders. And so the more that I can give you to help you understand what lenders do, and as you guys know, I am a lender myself, then I think that will help you better position yourself as a credit expert and really help your clients get your goal. Because that's our goal, right? As CROs, as people in business, our goal is to help our client get to their goal. But are we really doing it? Are we really looking and fine-tuning that credit report to make sure we're making the right move? And I hope today's message helps you with that. I appreciate you all. Have a beautiful day, and thank you for being